The night of the Christmas dinner began with a silence that felt heavier than noise. Snow pressed against the tall glass windows of the corporate banquet hall, white and endless, while inside, crystal chandeliers glowed and laughter rose and fell like waves. Among tailored suits and polished smiles, one woman stood still, her hand resting gently on the shoulder of a small girl with wide eyes and a cautious expression. This was not just another holiday dinner. This was the night when a single moment, unnoticed by most, would quietly change several lives forever. Before the story unfolds further, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that even the smallest act of understanding can transform a life, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this matter because people like this exist. Elizabeth Harper was known throughout Chicago's corporate world as a force of nature. As CEO of a fast-growing logistics company, she was admired for her discipline, feared for her high standards, and rarely seen without her composed expression. She had earned everything herself after losing her husband in a car accident 8 years earlier. What few people knew was that the most defining part of her life was not her title, but her daughter, Lily, who had been born deaf. Elizabeth had learned to navigate two demanding worlds at once, the relentless pace of leadership and the quiet, visual language of her child. Lily was 9 years old now, intelligent, observant, and often overwhelmed in crowded spaces filled with sounds she could not hear. Elizabeth had hesitated before deciding to bring Lily to the annual company Christmas dinner. The event was formal, loud, and filled with unfamiliar faces, but Lily had begged to see where her mother worked, to step into that shining world she only knew through stories. Elizabeth believed exposure built strength, even when fear tugged at her chest. She dressed Lily in a soft blue dress and braided her hair carefully, signing reassurance with practiced hands before they entered the hall together. Across the room, near the back tables reserved for junior staff, sat Daniel Brooks. He was a warehouse supervisor, a single father of a 7-year-old boy named Noah. Daniel had lost his wife to illness 3 years earlier, and since then, life had been a continuous balancing act between long shifts and bedtime routines. He rarely attended company events, but this dinner mattered. Promotions were being announced, and missing it could mean being forgotten. Daniel wore a modest suit that didn't quite hide his exhaustion. His eyes carried the look of someone who had learned to endure quietly. Daniel's connection to silence ran deep. Noah had been born with partial hearing loss, and although he could hear with assistance, sign language had become their shared refuge during difficult moments. Late nights in hospital corridors, mornings filled with therapy appointments, and years of explaining to the world that his son was not broken, had shaped Daniel into a man fluent in patience. Sign language was not just communication to him, it was love made visible. As the dinner progressed, speeches blurred together, and applause filled the room in bursts Lily could only sense through vibrations in the floor. Elizabeth watched her daughter carefully, noticing the tightening of Lily's shoulders and the way her gaze darted around the room. Lily was smiling politely, but her hands fidgeted, fingers tapping out nervous patterns only Elizabeth recognized. When the lights dimmed briefly for a presentation, Lily flinched, and Elizabeth felt a familiar ache of guilt. She wondered if bringing Lily had been a mistake. That was when Daniel noticed them. From his seat, he saw the small girl's discomfort in a way others didn't. He recognized the signs because he had lived them. The slight withdrawal, the scanning eyes, the isolation, hidden behind composure. When Lily dropped her fork and froze, unsure whether to draw attention to herself, Daniel stood without thinking. He retrieved it, placed it back gently, and smiled warmly at Lily before returning to his table. It was a simple act, but Lily's eyes followed him with curiosity instead of fear. A few minutes later, something extraordinary happened in a room full of ordinary distractions. Lily raised her hands hesitantly and signed a question toward her mother, asking who that man was. Elizabeth answered softly through signs, explaining he worked at the company. Lily watched Daniel from afar, then did something that made Elizabeth's breath catch. Lily signed thank you in his direction, unsure if he would understand. Daniel did. He responded instinctively, signing "You're welcome" with a gentle smile. For Lily, it was like discovering oxygen. Her face lit up with pure astonishment and joy. For Elizabeth, the world seemed to tilt. She'd spent years feeling alone in her daughter's silence, assuming no one else in her professional sphere would understand. Yet here was a man she had never noticed, speaking Lily's language effortlessly. From that moment, the dinner transformed. Lily relaxed, her posture softening, her hands coming alive as she communicated animatedly with her mother, occasionally glancing toward Daniel. Elizabeth felt an unfamiliar warmth spread through her chest, mixed with humility. She realized how narrow her view had become, how leadership had blinded her to the quiet strength surrounding her. As dessert was served, Elizabeth made a decision that surprised even herself. She moved from her reserved table to Daniel's, thanking him through both speech and sign. Daniel responded modestly, explaining his son and the years that had taught him patience and empathy. Their exchange was brief but meaningful, layered with unspoken understanding. Lily sat between them, beaming, her world suddenly expanded. That night did not end with grand announcements or dramatic revelations. Instead, it ended with something far more powerful: connection. Elizabeth drove home through falling snow, Lily asleep in the back seat, her small hands still curled as if signing in her dreams. Elizabeth realized that success had never felt this full before. In the weeks that followed, change rippled outward. Elizabeth began advocating quietly for inclusivity within the company, implementing accessibility training and resources not as charity, but as necessity. Daniel was offered a leadership development opportunity, not out of pity, but recognition of qualities long overlooked. Lily and Noah met soon after, their friendship forming naturally through shared understanding rather than spoken words. Elizabeth watched her daughter flourish, her confidence growing as she learned she was not alone. Daniel watched his son gain pride in a skill that once made him feel different. Two families, once isolated by grief and responsibility, found strength in shared experience. As Christmas approached again, Elizabeth reflected on how easily life could have passed without that one moment of recognition. How many people moved through silence unnoticed, how leadership at its core was not about control but awareness. She understood now that power meant making space for voices expressed in many forms. If this story is touching something deep inside you, if it reminds you of moments when understanding changed your path or someone else's, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and engage with the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. Before this story ends, we have a special request for you. Please comment below with a word or phrase that represents kindness to you. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. On the next Christmas Eve, the company hosted a smaller, warmer gathering. This time, sign language interpreters were present, children laughed freely, and silence was no longer something to fear. Elizabeth stood beside Daniel, not as CEO and employee, but as two parents who had learned the same lesson from different directions. Lily signed happily with friends, her laughter visible in every movement. The snow fell gently outside, the same as the year before, but everything else had changed. Not because of power, wealth, or ambition, but because one person recognized another in a moment of vulnerability. And in that recognition, lives shifted quietly, beautifully, and forever.